I guess I should start from the beginning, but where do I even begin? My name is Mark, and I've been married to Jessica for almost 10 years. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but overall, I thought we were solid. We have a beautiful home in a suburban neighborhood, 2 kids, and a family dog named Max. Life seemed pretty ordinary, and I was okay with that. I didn't realize that ordinary was about to shatter into pieces. The first signs of trouble were subtle. Jessica started spending more time on her phone, which, at first, didn't raise any red flags. I mean, we all get caught up in social media, right? But I noticed she was texting a lot late at night, and when I asked her about it, she waved it off. "Just work stuff, babe, you know how it is," she'd say with that dismissive tone that always sent a shiver down my spine. I also noticed her changing behaviors. She was more irritable, snapping at me over small things. Sometimes it felt like she was a completely different person. When I brought this up, she'd brush it off, claiming she was just stressed with the kids and work. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, an uneasy feeling started to creep in, like a dark cloud hanging over our marriage. Then there was the car incident. I had just sold our family car, a reliable old sedan that had taken us through countless road trips and school pickups. I was cleaning it out before handing it over to the new owner when I stumbled upon something that made my heart sink. In the glove compartment, among the usual junk, I found an envelope filled with photographs. At first, I thought they were just pictures from our family outings, but then I saw a snapshot of Jessica, lips locked with another man in the back seat of the car. I froze. The world around me faded as I stared at that one image, horrified and heartbroken. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't breathe. All the signs I had ignored suddenly flooded my mind. The late-night texts, the distant looks, the sudden need to go out with her friends more often. All of it pointed to one thing: she was cheating on me. That evening I confronted her. My heart raced as I paced back and forth in the living room, clutching the photos in my hand like a ticking time bomb. When Jessica came home, I could see the surprise on her face. "What's wrong, Mark?" she asked, feigning innocence. I threw the photos on the table, watching her face drain of color. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. Her reaction was not what I expected. Instead of breaking down or admitting to her betrayal, she started with a laugh as if I were joking. "Oh, come on, babe, you can't be serious. Those are just, pictures from a party." It was infuriating how she tried to downplay it, a smirk creeping onto her lips. I could feel my blood boiling. "You're lying, Jessica, I saw you." The excuses came pouring out, one after the other. "It was a mistake, it didn't mean anything," she said, her voice rising. "You're overreacting, Mark." I wanted to scream, to let out the tidal wave of emotions crashing inside me. Instead, I felt as if I was sinking. Each word she said felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. I couldn't wrap my head around it. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, was standing in front of me, caught in a web of lies. I never thought I'd be in this position, questioning everything I thought I knew about our relationship. The betrayal felt like a hot slap across my face, and the anger bubbled inside me, mingling with a profound sense of loss. I didn't know what to say or do next. All I felt was the crushing weight of betrayal and the reality of my crumbling marriage. As Jessica continued to spew her excuses, I realized I had to think clearly to figure out my next steps. But what did I even want? I felt like I was spiraling, lost in a storm of emotions. To say I was heartbroken would be an understatement. I was shattered. I needed to process this betrayal and find a way forward. But what did that even mean? The thought of losing everything I had built was terrifying, yet the thought of staying in a relationship built on lies felt equally suffocating. I was at a crossroads, and the path ahead was murky. The emotional roller coaster had only just begun, and I had no idea where it would take me. All I knew was that I had to make a decision, and fast. But how could I make a choice when I was still reeling from the shock of it all? The days following the confrontation felt like walking through a fog. I was still processing the shock of Jessica's betrayal, and it felt like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I looked at her, I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and a nagging sense of betrayal. I went through the motions of daily life, dropping the kids off at school, attending work meetings, and pretending everything was normal. But inside, I was a storm of confusion. After that first confrontation, Jessica seemed to shift into damage control mode. She would come home with flowers, trying to show remorse, but all I could see was the woman who had betrayed me. "I'm so sorry, Mark," she'd say, her voice soft and pleading. "It was a mistake and it meant nothing. I love you. Please, let's work through this." Her words sounded rehearsed, a hollow echo of what I wanted to hear. I wanted to believe her, but every time I looked into her eyes, I saw the woman in those photos, the woman who had kissed another man in our family car. One evening, I finally sat down with her, determined to get to the bottom of her lies. "Who is he, Jessica?" I asked, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. She hesitated, her eyes darting away from mine as if searching for an escape. "It doesn't matter, Mark." I swear I was just confused. It was a stupid fling. She replied, her tone shifting from pleading to defensive. "You can't hold this against me forever." But I could. The betrayal cut deep, and the more she tried to justify her actions, the angrier I became. "You think this is just some silly mistake? You kissed him, in our car." I spat the last words out like venom. "I don't even know who you are anymore." At that moment, everything felt like it was unraveling. Jessica's facade cracked, and I could see a flicker of fear in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you. I felt lost," she admitted. The honesty in her voice surprised me, but it didn't soften the blow of her actions. "I thought you didn't care anymore," she added, as if that was supposed to justify her betrayal. "Are you kidding me? I've been working my ass off for this family. I've been here. But I guess you were too busy with him to notice." I shot back, my voice raised. Anger surged through me, fueled by the helplessness of my situation. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who could betray the very foundation of our relationship. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the memory of the kiss in my mind. Each time I thought about it, I felt a fresh wave of pain wash over me. I began to question everything: our marriage, our life together, even our children. Had I been blind to her unhappiness? Were there signs I had missed? After a few days, I decided to take a step back. I needed to think clearly. Jessica had suggested couples therapy, but I wasn't ready for that yet. I felt like I was still in shock, and the idea of sitting across from her, pretending like everything was fine, made my stomach churn. I needed space to figure out what I truly wanted. So I began to develop a plan. I decided that I would gather evidence of her deceit, not because I wanted to hurt her further, but because I needed closure. I started going through her social media, combing through every interaction she had. I found messages that confirmed my worst fears: flirty exchanges, plans to meet up, and even a few angry exchanges when she tried to push him away. It felt like I was peeling back layers of a lie that she had built around me. Each discovery ignited my anger anew. I felt betrayed, but I also felt empowered. I wasn't going to be the victim in my own story. I started to consider my options. What would I say when I finally confronted her again? What was my endgame? Could I really forgive her, or was this the beginning of the end for us? After days of internal debate, I decided that I needed to confront her one last time. I had to make it clear that I knew everything. But this time I wouldn't come from a place of pain. I wanted to lay it all out: her choices, the consequences, and ultimately my decision on how to move forward. As I prepared for that conversation, I felt a mix of hope and dread. I knew it would change everything, but I also knew I could no longer live in a fog of confusion. This was my life, my family, and I needed to take control of my own narrative. It was time to find out if there was a future for us, or if it was time to say goodbye for good. But either way, I was determined to face the truth head-on. The day of my final confrontation with Jessica felt charged with tension. I had spent hours rehearsing what I wanted to say, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. My stomach churned with anxiety as I paced the living room, waiting for her to come home from work. I wanted to be calm, collected, but inside I was a bundle of nerves. I could feel the weight of the past 2 weeks pressing down on me, and the sense of betrayal was still fresh. When she finally walked through the door, I could tell right away that she sensed something was off. Jessica looked at me, her expression shifting from excitement to confusion. "Hey honey, you okay?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I nodded but didn't respond. Instead, I gestured for her to sit down. The gravity of the moment hung heavy in the air. "Mark, what's going on?" she asked, her brow furrowing. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts before launching into the confrontation. "I know everything, Jessica, the texts, the pictures, everything." I watched her demeanor change in an instant. The casual demeanor she'd worn moments before faded, replaced by a look of panic. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" she stammered. I could see the denial bubbling just beneath the surface. "Don't play games with me. I found the photos in the car, Jessica, the ones of you kissing him. And I've seen the messages between you two," I said, my voice steady but filled with determination. "You lied to me, and you thought I wouldn't find out." Expression shifted from panic to anger, and I watched as she tried to come up with a defense. "Look, it was a mistake. It meant nothing, you have to believe me," she pleaded. The desperation in her tone was unmistakable, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I was done with her excuses. "You think I'm just going to let it all slide because you say it meant nothing? You broke my trust, Jessica." I could see her struggling for words, her mind racing as she fought to regain control of the situation. I didn't think it would blow up like this," she finally admitted, her voice shaky. "I thought I could fix things, but then it just got out of hand." I shook my head at her. "You thought you could fix what? Sleeping with someone else? You didn't even think about us." For a moment, silence enveloped us, and I could see the guilt washing over her face. The anger inside me simmered, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed to get my point across. "You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. This isn't just some petty mistake. This is about trust, loyalty, and love. You betrayed me and you put our whole family at risk." Tears welled in her eyes, and I could see that she was truly realizing the weight of her actions. "I'm so sorry, Mark. I really am. I know I messed up and I never wanted to hurt you. I love you and I want to make this right," she cried. Her words had a sincerity I hadn't seen before, but they also felt like a desperate plea to hold on to what she had destroyed. "Love isn't just a word, Jessica, it's action. And your actions have shown me that you don't value what we built together," I stated firmly. "I need to know, do you want to stay in this marriage? Because if you do, then we have to talk about what that looks like. I can't keep living like this, waiting for the next betrayal." "I want to stay, I do," she exclaimed, reaching for my hand. I pulled away, not ready for that kind of connection. "Then you need to be honest. I want to know everything, how it started. He is, and why you felt you couldn't come to me," I demanded. I wanted to understand the full picture to see if there was any shred of hope for us. With a shaky breath, Jessica began to recount her story. "It was just a stupid fling with someone from work," she confessed. "I thought it was harmless at first, just flirting, a way to escape the stress. But then it escalated. I know I should have come to you, but I felt trapped. I didn't know how to talk to you about my feelings anymore." As she spoke, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. It was hard to hear her lay bare her insecurities, but it also felt like a feeble justification for her actions. "You made a choice, Jessica. You could have come to me and we could have worked through it together, but you chose to cheat instead. You chose him over our family," I said, my voice hardening. "I was stupid. I know that now. But I want to change, Mark. I want us to work," she pleaded. I could see the desperation in her eyes, but part of me was still skeptical. Could I really trust her again? Would she be able to commit to fixing what she had broken? The uncertainty loomed large, but I knew I had to make a decision soon. As we talked, I felt a mix of hope and dread. I didn't want to make any rash decisions, but I also couldn't pretend like everything was okay. The emotional damage was real and it would take time to heal. But did I even want to try? Or was it time to cut my losses and move on? My heart ached with the weight of the choice ahead of me. In that moment, I realized I had to do what was best for me and our children. I couldn't let myself fall into a cycle of pain and betrayal again. I needed clarity and a plan moving forward. As the conversation continued, I could feel the walls closing in on me, and the air grew thick with tension. The truth was hanging between us, and I knew it was time to decide our fate. As the gravity of our conversation settled in, I felt a myriad of emotions coursing through me. Jessica's revelations were heartbreaking, yet they didn't absolve her of her actions. She had chosen a path of betrayal, and no amount of regret could undo that. I needed to approach this situation carefully, weighing my options as I considered the future of our family. Jessica, I don't want to make any decisions in the heat of the moment, I said, trying to maintain a calm demeanor despite the chaos swirling inside me. But I do need time to think about what you've told me. I can't just pretend everything is fine. Please, Mark, I'll do anything to prove I can change, she said, her voice breaking. The sincerity in her eyes almost made me falter. I wanted to believe her, but a part of me feared that this was merely another layer of manipulation. I'll go to therapy, I'll be open and honest, whatever it takes to show you I'm committed to making this right, she added, her tone earnest. Therapy might help, but it's going to take more than that, I replied, my voice firm. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. It's going to take time and consistent effort. I need to see real changes in you, in us, but I also need to focus on myself and what I want. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. For the first time, I could see the vulnerability in her eyes, the fear of losing everything. And for a fleeting moment, I felt a twinge of sympathy. I knew she was struggling, overwhelmed by the consequences of her choices. But did that mean I had to forgive and forget? Let's take a break, I finally suggested, surprising us both. A break from each other, but a break from this constant strain. I think we should spend some time apart to really think about what we want. I need space to process everything without the pressure of pretending things are okay. Her expression shifted from desperation to confusion. You mean like separating? She asked, her voice shaky. Mark, I don't want that. I want to fix this. I know, but I can't be here, watching you try to convince me while I'm still working through my own feelings. It's too much, I said, feeling my heart ache for her but also for myself. I need to think clearly. I need to figure out if I can ever trust you again. The look on Jessica's face was one of pure pain. Please don't do this. I'll change, I promise. I can't lose you, she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. But the truth was I was scared of losing myself in this mess. Her words, while heartbreaking, felt like the last desperate attempts of someone caught in the aftermath of their own destruction. I just need time, I repeated, my voice softer. I need to see how I feel when I step back from it all. I'm not saying forever, but I can't keep living in this emotional turmoil. With a resigned nod, she finally agreed. Okay, I can respect that, she said, though it was clear her heart was breaking. We spent the next few days in a strange silence, the tension palpable as we navigated our home like strangers. I focused on the kids, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy for their sake while I wrestled with my own feelings. The separation was torturous. I moved into the spare bedroom, which felt like a punishment for both of us. I could hear Jessica sobbing at night, and though I felt a pang of guilt, I also knew that I needed to prioritize my own mental health. I found solace in the quiet moments, allowing myself to process everything without her presence clouding my judgment. As days turned into weeks, I started to reflect on what I truly wanted. I spent hours thinking about our marriage, the good times we shared, and the life we built together. I missed the laughter we once had, the intimacy we shared, and the bond that felt unbreakable. But how could I ever trust her again? How could I reconcile the woman I loved with the one who betrayed me? During this time, I also turned inward, considering my own role in our relationship. Had I been distant? Had I unintentionally pushed her away? I began to understand that while her actions were unforgivable, I also had to acknowledge my own shortcomings. This realization didn't excuse her behavior, but it gave me insight into the complexity of our relationship dynamics. Amid the reflections, I also sought advice from close friends. I shared my story with them, wanting to hear their perspectives on infidelity and forgiveness. Some encouraged reconciliation, while others supported the idea of moving on. Each conversation provided me with pieces of clarity, helping me shape my own thoughts and feelings. I kept a journal, pouring out my emotions onto the pages. I wrote about my fears, my anger, and my heartache. I found it therapeutic to articulate my feelings, to see them laid out in front of me. It was a process of healing, and slowly but surely, I began to feel a sense of clarity emerging from the chaos. The turning point came one evening when I found myself sitting in our backyard, staring up at the stars. As the cool breeze brushed against my face, I felt a sense of tranquility that had eluded me for weeks. I realized that I had the power to decide my own future, whether that meant working towards rebuilding my marriage or choosing to move forward alone. The next step was clear. I needed to have another conversation with Jessica. I had to lay out my thoughts and feelings to communicate where I stood after this period of reflection. As the night deepened, I felt a sense of resolution wash over me. It was time. Face the truth head-on, whatever that truth might be. I had the power to shape my destiny, and I was determined to take control of my own narrative. The next day, I decided to sit down with Jessica again. I could feel the weight of anticipation in the air as I prepared myself for this conversation. I had no idea how it would unfold, but I knew it was time to confront the reality of our situation. I needed to be honest about my feelings and what I had come to realize during our separation. When Jessica walked into the living room, the tension between us was palpable. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes, a testament to the toll our situation had taken on both of us. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts before speaking. "Jessica, we need to talk." Her eyes widened and she nodded, sitting down on the edge of the couch, her body language tense. "I know I messed up. I'm ready to do whatever it takes," she started, her voice tinged with desperation. "I've been thinking about everything and I just want to fix this." I held up my hand to stop her. "I appreciate that, but I need to share where I'm at first. I've had time to think, really think about what's happened and what I want moving forward," I said, keeping my tone steady. "And the truth is I'm conflicted. I love you, but I can't ignore what you did. You broke my trust, and that's a hard thing to come back from." Jessica's expression shifted from hope to fear, and I could see her grappling with the seriousness of what I was saying. "I understand that. I promise to work on myself, on us. I just need you to give me a chance," she pleaded. "I'm not saying it's impossible," I replied, trying to keep my tone calm despite the storm of emotions inside me. "But there are conditions. I need you to be completely open with me. No more secrets, no more lies. You need to prove to me that you're committed to this marriage, not just with words, but with actions." "Yes, I can do that. I will do that," she exclaimed, her voice filled with determination. "I'll go to therapy and I'll be transparent about everything. I want to rebuild our relationship, Mark. I miss you." Hearing her say that hit me hard. I missed her too in so many ways, but I also knew that missing someone didn't mean I could just overlook the pain she had caused. "We also need to establish boundaries," I continued. "I can't have you talking to him or seeing him in any context. I need to know that you're choosing me, and that means cutting ties with anyone who poses a threat to our marriage." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes, I promise. I'll cut him out of my life completely," she said earnestly. "It's not worth it. I want our family back." "All right," I said, feeling a glimmer of hope mixed with skepticism. "But this is going to be a long road. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. We need to work on our communication and figure out what went wrong in the first place. I want us to go to therapy together." "Of course." "I would love that," Jessica replied, her voice brighter now. "I've realized how much I took for granted. I want to understand my own issues and how they affected us." As we talked, I could feel the walls between us starting to crumble, but I was still cautious. It was essential that she understood the seriousness of what had happened. "This isn't just about forgiveness," I said. "It's about accountability, and I need to see you take responsibility for your actions. It's going to be difficult, but I believe we can get through this if we both commit." Jessica nodded vigorously, wiping her tears away. "I won't let you down, Mark. I'll show you I can be the wife you deserve." After a long discussion, we agreed to seek couples therapy as soon as possible. I suggested we also spend some time apart after the initial session to give us both space to reflect on the changes we needed to make. It was going to be a difficult journey, but at least we were taking steps toward rebuilding what had been broken. As we wrapped up our conversation, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. I wasn't naive enough to believe everything would just fall into place, but I knew that real change was possible if we both committed to it. I was willing to give it a shot, but I also made it clear that I wouldn't tolerate any more betrayal. That evening, I lay in bed, contemplating everything. I realized that while the journey ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, it was one I had to embark on for the sake of my family and myself. I needed to see if we could emerge stronger from this ordeal or if it was time to part ways for good. The days turned into weeks as we started therapy, and I anxiously awaited each session. The therapist helped us navigate our feelings, dive deeper into the root causes of our issues, and encouraged us to communicate openly. I could see Jessica making a genuine effort to change. She was more open, attentive, and willing to discuss her feelings. Yet in the back of my mind, I still battled feelings of doubt and fear. I had made it clear that trust needed to be rebuilt, but was it truly possible? Each time we finished a session, I left with a mix of hope and anxiety. The fear of falling back into old patterns was always present, but I also felt the potential for healing. Eventually, I found myself grappling with a question that haunted me. Could I really forgive her? Could I let go of the past and allow us to create a new future together? The answer remained elusive, but as the weeks passed, I began to feel an inch of hope, a small glimmer that suggested maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. But the journey was far from over. I knew it would take time, patience, and a lot of hard work on both our ends. As I looked toward the future, I realized that I had to keep my heart open, even in the face of uncertainty. This might be the turning point we desperately needed, but only time would tell if we could truly overcome the betrayal that had threatened to tear us apart. As the weeks turned into months, the journey of rebuilding trust with Jessica proved to be as challenging as I anticipated. We kept up with therapy sessions, which became a crucial part of our routine. Each week, we sat down with our therapist, unraveling the complexities of our relationship and addressing the wounds inflicted by her infidelity. At first, it felt like we were treading water, barely keeping our heads above the surface. Jessica worked hard to prove her commitment to our marriage, participating in therapy with an open heart. I saw her vulnerability blossom in a way I hadn't before. She opened up about her insecurities, how she felt overwhelmed by the demands of work and family, and how she had sought validation outside of our marriage. I listened as she shared her struggles, and it was clear she was genuinely trying to understand her actions. But with every session, I also felt the sting of betrayal. Memories of that kiss in our family car haunted me, and I often found myself grappling with the question of whether I could truly forgive her. I wanted to move forward, but I couldn't shake the fear of falling into the same patterns that had led us here in the first place. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. "How do I know you won't do this again?" I asked Jessica, my voice shaky with emotion. "How do I know this is just a phase?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I can't prove it to you overnight, Mark. I wish I could, but I'm committed to doing the work. I want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve." There was an urgency in her voice that struck a chord in me, and for the first time in a while I felt a flicker of hope. "Then let's keep working. Let's keep talking openly," I said, my resolve strengthening. "But I need to set some boundaries. No late nights out without checking in. No more keeping secrets. If something bothering you, tell me. I need to know you're choosing me every day." She nodded vigorously, tears in her eyes. "I promise. I want to be better for both of us." We began to establish a new routine, one where communication took center stage. We set aside time each week to connect, to talk about our fears, our hopes, and our progress. I also made it a point to express my own feelings more openly, sharing my worries and vulnerabilities. It was a learning curve, but slowly, I felt the walls between us begin to crumble. However, healing isn't linear. There were days when I felt overwhelmed by doubt, moments where the pain of her betrayal crept back in like an unwelcome guest. I would catch myself glancing at her phone, the memories of late-night texts echoing in my mind. But each time those feelings surfaced, I reminded myself of the work we were doing. I focused on the small victories, the laughter we shared, the intimacy we were rebuilding, and the way she genuinely looked at me as if trying to see me for the first time again. One night, as we sat together on the couch, I felt a shift. Jessica turned to me, her expression earnest. "I know I hurt you deeply, and I understand it's going to take time for you to heal, but I want you to know how much you mean to me. I'm grateful every day that you're willing to give us this chance," she said softly. In that moment, I realized that while the road ahead would still be fraught with challenges, we had forged a new path together. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't happen overnight, but we were both committed to making it work. The journey had transformed us in ways I never imagined, fostering resilience and a deeper understanding of one another. As the months passed, I noticed shifts in my own heart. The anger that once bubbled just beneath the surface faded, replaced by a cautious optimism. I began to envision a future where we could emerge stronger together, where the lessons learned from this painful chapter would reshape the foundation of our marriage. One evening, as we sat down to dinner, I looked across the table at Jessica. The warmth in her smile reminded me of the girl I fell in love with all those years ago. "You know," I said, "I think we're going to be okay. It's going to take time, but I believe we can rebuild what was lost." Her eyes sparkled with a mix of relief and hope. "I want us to be okay. I'm dedicated to this, Mark," she replied, her voice steady and filled with conviction. And just like that, I felt the first hints of forgiveness bloom inside me. It wasn't all at once, but it was a start. I knew that the pain of betrayal would linger, a reminder of the battles we had fought. But I also understood that love, when nurtured with honesty and effort, could heal wounds we never thought we could overcome. In the end, this experience taught me the importance of communication, the value of vulnerability, and the strength that comes from facing challenges together. It was a hard lesson, but one that shaped our journey moving forward. As I looked at Jessica, I realized that we were writing a new story, one filled with hope, resilience, and a commitment to becoming better versions of ourselves. And though the future remained uncertain, I found comfort in knowing we were willing to face it together, one day at a time.